here. We wanted to talk about African American sports, in particular, the Harlem Globetrotters. The Harlem Globetrotters really didn't start out in Harlem. They actually started out in Chicago, and the owner, the creator, the founder of the Harlem Globetrotters wanted to use the name Harlem because in 1926 when we started, Harlem was going through the emergence of the Harlem Renaissance. So he used that name, he used Globetrotters to try to attract people. And I don't want to go into detail, you can do your research on the Harlem Globetrotters, but I don't want to go into detail on what they did. Obviously they were a professional basketball team that is still in existence today. They just celebrated their 90th year anniversary. What I do want to talk about was the opportunity that the Harlem Globetrotters afforded to many African Americans, not only as players, but when they traveled around the country, they afforded a lot of African American businesses to thrive because of them. They were originally called Harlem Renaissance Big Five, and that's because of the sponsorship that they received from the Waldorf Casino in Chicago. So the founder was a Jewish immigrant from Poland, and he basically saw how popular basketball was. They were very good. They played a lot of professional teams and played a lot of high school, colleges in our country. But the biggest thing that they did was allow a lot of businessmen to make money off of that, because when they came to a town, they were able to have, like you're right now, concessions, admissions. They were able to advertise for ballrooms, casinos, and in those days that was huge. The most famous Harlem Globetrotter is Will Chamberlain. And Will Chamberlain said, if it weren't for the Harlem Globetrotters, a lot of players and a lot of people would be janitors or on welfare. So it was a huge thing, and the NBA was influenced from the Harlem Globetrotters. It wasn't the other way around. A lot of the showmanship, a lot of the advertising and marketing are just plans from the Harlem Globetrotters back in the days. So I encourage you to do your own research, not just on basketball, but on the business side, which I think is why the NBA is thriving nowadays, which I encourage my guys to not be players, but be owners, be managers, be in the front office and the back rooms of the NBA, because those are the people that are making it long-term. It's one thing to get a contract and say, hey, I'm getting $1 million. It's another thing to have a job and you can make $1 million throughout your contract and throughout your lifetime. And you have, I just met with Herb Brown, who's an NBA scout now, but was an NBA coach, and he's got to be somewhere in his 80s and he's still making money off the NBA. And that to me is a career, not playing for 10 years and then figuring out what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So I encourage you guys as young people to do your research on the Harlem Globetrotters and the business side. And just a little story, as it started out, it was 5 people, 5 original players, and the owner said, we split all the profits. Well, he died a very rich man, and shortly after the start of the Harlem Globetrotters, he changed the contract to where they were making $750 a day. And I think it has a lot to do with what's going on now with players. It doesn't matter the NBA, NFL, a lot of players resent owners because of the contract that they're given. They don't realize that it's really them limiting themselves and not going past the game itself, the sport itself, and really making yourself a brand, making yourself the CEO and owner of your own brand, not an NBA team. The best example of that would be LeBron James. It's no coincidence that he's very popular and very rich outside of the NBA. If he were to retire today, he'd be fine, his kids would be fine, his grandkids would be fine. So I think that's a lesson that needs to be taught. And the last thing that I'd like to share is that the rival team to the Harlem Globetrotters was the Harlem Renaissance Big Five, which is did not make as much money as the owner of the Harlem Globetrotters because he did give fair contracts, because he was worried about how the players were paid, and he was a shrewd businessman, and he did not want to make money or too much money off of the players. So to me, that's an example of someone being ethical and someone saying, you know what, I can be rich off of you, but I choose for us to be rich together, and if we are capped what we can make, then I'm fine with that as long as I was ethical. His last quote in 1979 in Sports Illustrated is that I will die a rich man because I thought about my social consciousness. And at that time, Black Panthers were huge, and a lot of people talked about the Harlem Globetrotters being somewhat mainstream and not get back to their roots. So that's also a lesson that I like for you guys to look at as far as where the line is with your ethics and with making money. And there is a line, especially if you're in business. Okay? I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Coach, and thank you everybody for coming out. And what I wanted to mention for those students who are international students, sometimes you may be confused what's going on. But this is Black History Month, but without white history, there's no Black history. This is America. So you can look at everybody from the abolitionists, John Brown, Abraham Lincoln, etc. People that made America what it is and united and participated in trying to make something they knew was right to happen. And so I have to personally thank my athletic director, Laura, but she has always supported me. In all my quests, all of them, even those that especially had to do with this project here, and even, for example, like I remember at one sports banquet we had here at the end of the year, she mentioned, she was talking about the NAIA, and she mentioned that it was the first organization that had Black basketball players. Now, I was surprised by that, and I was really happy. And she did it, and it made me feel good, and it was an important piece of information. So before we look at this excellent film about the excellent Black tennis player, you're going to see how not only her, but they were white Americans that had an instrumental in helping her get there. I'm going to mention this book here. This book was written by my brother. He's the foremost authority on African American tennis, right? We've got this book, and in the book, it's filled with newspaper articles from Black sports writers, from Black newspapers, and they would follow the American Tennis Association, which I came at. We had the United States Tennis Association, which for a long time didn't allow Black people to participate in their tournaments. And you'll see, this is what's really good about this video, you'll see how Clea was first to break in and how she broke in. And one of the people who stood up for her, and she was the next excellent player, wrote an article for the New York Times and mentioned that she couldn't feel comfortable being #1 in the world, knowing that Althea couldn't participate. Now, along with these people, Black/white history, because that's the emphasis I want to put on it, is Butch Buchholz. Butch Buchholz is, we're going to have a new tennis center. And he's, helping us raise the funds to build this new tennis center. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about somebody. There's a lot of money involved in building these tennis courts. I just want to tell you a little bit about, I don't know if you know Arthur Ashe. Arthur Ashe was the first Black man to be #1 in the world. But when he was a junior in high school in Richmond, Virginia, he could not play on public courts. So the only place he could play is one of the places where he came out of, which is this gentleman, Dr. Walter Johnson, Richmond had 2 tennis courts. And there were other ashes, there were other young black tennis players that could play good. And some of them were just as good as Arthur. So when Arthur got into the junior high school, 11th grade, he went to St. Louis with Buckholz family. And people out there hosted him where he could play on courts and where he could play with white boys and get as good as he got. So you can imagine what happens when you're in a junior high school and you get an opportunity to really excel. It can make all the difference in the world. So Butch, to me, again, he's another one of these Abraham Lincoln types. He talked out on another level. And I asked Kiwan and Norman to come today. Because for 10 years I worked at the Buckholz family, well, the Buckholz Tennis Center. It's in, Liberty City, in the heart of inner city, Miami. And so part of Butch's deal to get the opportunity to host a tournament out of Carrington Park was that they required him to give back, give something. So he built $1 million facility there with all kinds of programs for inner city kids, predominantly black kids, right? And I know how Butch feels because a couple times I had lunch with him, with Gigi, and we were trying to convince him before he came on board, trying to convince him that to help us raise this money, we need $1.5 million to build these 12 tennis courts. And so I was at the Trump resort out there. It was Butch and it was one of the people from the golf. And we were having lunch. And he said, okay, well first I had to talk to her about that. And I sat back and I listened to him talk. You know, he's the director of Donald Trump's huge tournament, golf tournament. So I'm very interested. So I listened to that. And then he got around to myself and Gigi to talk about the tennis. And he talked about the tennis and it was very good. And we got some good ideas and he committed himself to helping out more. He didn't, at that time, he had decided to participate on the level that he is now. So we talked and went on for about 45 minutes. Finally said, hey, this is, I gotta get out of here. It's been great. I gotta go. And I had a trump card. This book. So I pulled the book out and said, hey, Butch, this is something I want you to have. And he opened the book, he sat back and he put his hands on his knees and started reading the book. Because he knew a lot of black players that were in this book. From back in the day, we're talking about the 50s and the early 60s. So he won us to be a freshman, excellent tennis player. I knew him when he was 7 years old at Buckholz Tennis Center. We were very proud of him. Him and Lewis was there also. I don't know the Hispanic tennis player that was there. But he won. Jim Berry from Channel 10 personally was involved with him, making sure that he stays on the court. But this is some of what came out of Butch's effort to help out. And so when you look at this video today, know that there's no black tennis, or black history without white history. This is America. We did this together. And I tell you, I was one of the first people to say, Obama was running for president. A black president? No way. This is going to happen. Get out of here. I don't even know him. Boy, see, okay, nobody can predict the future. And that's how wonderful it is. And that's the example. And I tell people, the rest of the world needs to look at America and what we did, how we went from to a certain tribe of people that were slavery to the president. See, and everything, all that whole package. So we know in this country, we know a lot about healing and fixing. I hope the rest of the world will take a look at that because we got some very